The strange thing about intuition is that it rarely arrives as certainty. It arrives as discomfort, a pause, a feeling you can't explain, a thought that visits you once and then quietly waits in the corner of your mind, waiting for the day you're finally ready to listen. That's exactly what happened to me, because the red flags weren't hidden. I just wasn't ready for them to be true. A while back, I had just moved to a new city. I got a new apartment and a new life. I had left behind a heartbreak that felt bigger than the situationship itself. The kind of heartbreak that makes you believe a change of scenery might somehow change what's happening inside of you. So I packed my things and left. I wasn't looking for love. If anything, I was trying to find myself again. I wanted peace, a fresh start, a chapter that didn't hurt to read. And then I met him, the building manager. At first, he was simply the person who helped me settle in. Someone I called when something broke. Someone who knew where things were. Someone doing his job, nothing more. Or at least, that's what I thought. What I didn't realize then was that my intuition had already formed an opinion. The very first time I saw him, I remember thinking he looked like a married man. Not because of anything specific, just the feeling. The way he carried himself, the way he spoke, the way he seemed to already belong to a life somewhere else. A wife, children, responsibilities. A whole world beyond the version of himself I could see. And then one day, he complimented my smile. And suddenly I realized he wasn't just being friendly, he was interested. For a moment, I questioned myself. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe my first impression meant nothing. Maybe I was imagining things. So I ignored the feeling, because that's what we often do when reality presents us with two possibilities, the one we feel and the one we hope is true. As we started talking, little things began to feel strange. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just pieces. The kind of pieces that don't make sense until much later. He disappeared on weekends, messages went unanswered, calls were declined, entire evenings would pass in silence, and every explanation felt almost believable. Almost. I remember trying to convince myself that I was overthinking, that maybe he was busy, and maybe life was complicated, and maybe there was a reason. But looking back, I wasn't confused. I was collecting evidence. My heart just hadn't caught up yet, because intuition doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes we spend months arguing with a whisper. Then came the contradictions, the things that didn't fit. He said he wanted me, but didn't want to be seen with me. He said he cared about me, but couldn't take me on a date. He said he thought about me constantly, yet somehow there was never room for me in his actual life. At the time, I kept trying to make those pieces fit together. I kept looking for an explanation that could turn confusion into clarity. But confusion wasn't clarity. That's what I eventually learned. People rarely reveal themselves at once. They introduce themselves in fragments. A comment, a pattern, a contradiction, a disappearing act, a promise that never becomes a plan. And somewhere in those fragments, the truth quietly waits. The truth arrived on an ordinary day, not through a confession, not through an apology, not through some dramatic revelation, just a photograph that wasn't meant for me. I saw a different profile picture in someone else's phone, and it was a man holding a child's hand. And suddenly the pieces stopped looking like separate pieces. They became a picture, a husband, a father, a family, a life that existed long before I entered the story. And in that moment, something strange happened. I wasn't shocked by the truth, I was shocked by how familiar it felt, because I had known. Somewhere deep down, I had known from the beginning. The woman I was when I first met him saw something that the woman developing feelings for him didn't want to see, and she had been right all along. For a while, I felt disappointed, not because I had lost him, but because I had lost the story I thought was unfolding, the future I imagined, the possibility, and the idea. It took me a while to understand that those were never real things. They were projections, and projections can be hard to let go of, because you're not grieving a person, you're grieving a version of them that never existed. The man I thought I was getting to know wasn't real. The clues had been there all along. The disappearing, the secrecy, the contradictions, and the constant feeling that something wasn't adding up. The truth had introduced itself many times. I just kept asking it to come back with more evidence. When I look back now, I don't see the story as a heartbreak. I see it as a rescue, because my intuition noticed things long before my heart was ready to accept them. The truth has a way of introducing itself eventually, not all at once, but piece by piece. And that's the part nobody talks about. We wait for the entire puzzle before we believe what we're seeing. Meanwhile, life is handing us the pieces one by one, a feeling, a contradiction, a pattern, a pause, a moment that doesn't sit right. And maybe that's why I don't feel like I lost anything. I didn't lose a future husband. I didn't lose a great love. I didn't lose my chance at happiness. If anything, I was protected from a future that would have cost me my peace. And sometimes that's what intuition really is. It's not fear, it's not anxiety, it's not negativity. It's just a quiet part of you that sees the future before the rest of you is ready. And if I learned anything from that chapter, it's that the red flags weren't hidden. They were simply arriving before I was willing to accept what they meant. Some chapters end with answers, others end with recognition. This one ended when I finally realized the woman I was becoming trusted herself more than the story she wanted to believe.